All right, let's go down south to the state of Georgia. The 5-0 Kentucky Wildcats coming into town after they shellacked Graham Mertz. Is anyone surprised? Well, Graham Mertz played okay. The Florida Gators there. Georgia Bulldogs 5-0 on the season. Kind of had an interesting day versus Auburn. Fresh, the first thing I asked in this game here is, can Kentucky be more than one-dimensional? You know, we're both big fans of Chris Davis's work. He was absolutely impressive. Maybe one of the best running backs in the country that a lot of people weren't aware of. He's kind of introduced himself in that regard, but he's got to get some help from Devin Leary. It's the only way for them to even have a shot at knocking off the Bulldogs here. But I'll turn it over to you.
Well, man, yeah, I think Ray Davis has been absolutely fantastic, but the majority of those yards feel like the stats only were came in versus Florida. But he definitely runs with a power and a force that is a complete wrecking ball on the field. But where's that Devin Leary aspect from a passing standpoint? When you look at their offense for the Cats, they're almost actually a 50-50 split. They average 225 passing, 171 rushing, but that passing game just doesn't feel like it's, I don't know, like lack of a better term, sexy. It's like, it's ho hum. It's not. I'm going to come out there, put up 350, where you're going to have to guard me up top, put 10 guys 10, 12 yards off the line. And you're going to have to cover sideline to sideline because it's play action, it's heavy run. I can go spread, I can do whatever I want. It doesn't have that feel to it. It's more of a, we're going to run, and then a play action. We're going to dictate the passing game in our terms. Now, that's great if you're ahead, but if you're behind, where does that Devin Leary situation come into play? He has success. He did beat Clemson a couple years ago. He was at NC State, but how does he add a little more flair to the passing game if the running game does get slowed down or they get in some situations? We haven't seen it happen so far this season, but you never know. You got to always be prepared and have those options available to you if you want to compete, for an SEC title or a national championship. You got to have a much more widespread offense. So where does Devin Leary fit into this offense game plan come Saturday? Do they run a little more play action? They try to catch Georgia looking into the backfield a little bit too much and maybe strike a couple big ones, and then let the running game sort of carry it out from there, because that offensive line in front of them, the big blue wall, is pretty fantastic and very physical. And also, you hit a couple of deep shots with the passing game because Georgia has started so slow the past 5 games of the season. Do you get a couple quick hitters and then run the ball with the best running game that Georgia's going to see all season probably, and take that downhill to kill the clock and milk it out and get a win on the road? It's funny where people think, well, Georgia's always been a slow starter, and this matchup between Kentucky and Georgia for the past 4 years has always been a very low-scoring, slobber knocker defense, 1980s, 1990s, ugly, football. It's not anything pretty. You're probably not going to see a ton of points. In 2019, it was 0-0 at the half. Georgia won. In 2019, it was 0-0 in the half. 2020, Dogs led 7-3. In 2021, Georgia was up 14-7 at the half. And then last year, Georgia was up 9-0 at the half. That's an average score of 7.5 to 2.5 between Georgia and Kentucky at the half. So the first half, you're going to see very, very methodical, run the ball, don't make mistakes, heavy hitting, pads are popping, linemen just smashing away. And who's going to break in the second half? Now, Georgia's been a great second half team. Kentucky's been a solid second half team. Where's that break going to come from? Who's going to make that one mistake? Who's going to miss that one block? Or who's going to make that great block on the end of the second level that's going to spurn somebody? Who's going to jump out and play action? Is it going to be Ladd McConkey? Is it going to be Bowers? We talk about Robinson for Kentucky, Berrien for Kentucky. Which of those playmakers from that ancillary edge is going to be out there and make that one play to help the running games develop? It's going to be interesting to watch. Carson Beck is actually statistically and shown in the second half that he can actually throw the ball. I threw for almost 300 yards a ball game every single game, maybe 350 somewhere in there. So he's actually been very consistent, but we've lacked that wow play, I think. It's just been very ho-hum. At the end of the game, has a bunch of yards, has completion percentage, but you're still waiting for that one 60-yarder on the play, because we've seen a couple of these overthrown or underthrown. I think that's what everyone's waiting for. When is Carson Beck going to hit that one deep shot that's going to open people's eyes? The dinks and dunks, the managing the game, or the short completion of Bowers and letting him run 30 yards for a touchdown versus Auburn. Those are great. Those are athletes, but where's he going to show off that arm strength to make the one deep throw? Because we haven't really seen that yet, to really back the defense off the line of scrimmage, because Georgia's running game, which historically they're known for, hasn't been fantastic either. It's been a very, statistically, they're the same as they have been ever, through 5 games last year, through 5 games this year, it's almost the same. But it lacks the wow, the power moment. And I think it comes later in the ball game, later in the second half, where we're not seeing it in the first half where they're putting people away and then running the ball down their throat in the second half. So how does this Georgia offense get started earlier to match the intensity that Kentucky is going to bring physically? Because if you put Kentucky behind by 2 touchdowns, that Ray Davis and that running attack may start getting shifted out of the priority, and they start to throw a little bit and putting in Leary's shoulders. If you let that running game stay around, that fourth quarter becomes very difficult. Your defense is already going to be tired. So how does Georgia manipulate the offense to attack early, maybe put the pressure on them to build a lead? We haven't seen historically, they don't have those leads at halftime. These games are tight, but if that happens, how do you take their running game away from Kentucky? Because right now, that's the biggest story, is where they're a very physical football team. Both of them are. Defensively, the Cats are allowing 297 a game, 221 in the air, 75.5 on the ground. And Kentucky has only allowed 25 or more points twice in their last 22 games. And one of those was a garbage touchdown by Vanderbilt 2 weeks ago. They're shutting people down. They're getting off the field. They're not getting beat and blown out. They're making you earn every inch. Is this Georgia football team capable of playing at that high level again? They had a tough one versus South Carolina, a tough one versus Auburn. This isn't the 2021 or 22 Dogs. This is the 23 Dogs. How do they make their statement? How do they make themselves known? Or are they just going to be they just don't have maybe all the things clicking? We're going to find out on Saturday if this team truly is ready for a stretch run, or if they're still living in the laurels of the past 2 years and they just don't have it all clicking, injuries starting to catch up with them. Or is Kentucky truly legit? And they're actually a team that's worthy of getting our utmost attention. I think people always were hesitant to believe in Kentucky. Man, it's Kentucky, whatever, it'll happen. This is a big chance for Stoops to take the next step. While I'm waiting for it, can they go into Athens and get a big win, be 6-0, and be in charge and control their own destiny? There's a lot at stake in this game. The over will not hit. Take the under in this football game. That spread, it was 14.5 last time I checked, Georgia. I take Kentucky in the points. I think Georgia wins by 3 late, but they are not blowing out Kentucky. This game will be a nail biter like they have been in the past, all the way to the very end. And if things bounce the right way, Devin Leary and Ray Davis in Kentucky might actually pull out a big W. But I think Georgia has just enough to defense in the second half to squeeze out a win and stay alive. But it's going to be a heck of a battle there on Saturday night in Athens.
Yeah, this is the first opportunity for Georgia to really show off this year. It's their opportunity to impress. This is the best team that they've faced so far this season. I haven't been impressed, like we've talked a couple times here, Fresh. I haven't been impressed with their early season schedule, along with some other people and other teams. You look at what went on with Auburn. Brock Bowers really bailed out Georgia. Like, he single-handedly took over that game and said, I'm not going to allow us to lose. And that's easy to do against a program like Auburn, where I called it shining up a turd last weekend. But Kentucky is a respectable program here. And they're a well-coached program with Mark Stoops there. Sorry about that one. I've messed up 2 names, and it's Ray Davis, not Chris Davis. So Georgia can't afford a slow start in this game. You can't allow Kentucky to kind of build momentum. You want to give this fire halftime speech against South Carolina. That's great against South Carolina. You can do that. You can close down South Carolina. Kentucky is not a program that you can completely close down. If I'm Georgia, I'm selling out the run. I'm selling out against the run, and I'm putting the ball in Devin Leary's hands and saying, Devin Leary, you beat us. I'm putting single coverage on the outside, one-on-one matchups. If they win, they win. If they lose, they lose. It's completely into that, because Devin Leary needs to play better. Ray Davis has been a man possessed. I think that you can maybe able to soften up Georgia a little bit on that one. But again, if I'm Georgia, I'm just saying, you guys beat us. Kentucky defensively did a great job against Florida by keeping everything in front of them. They had this bend don't break mentality. Graham Mertz went, I believe, 25 for 30 in that game. But if you take a look at a lot of the passes he completed, they were in between the 20s. They moved the ball up and down the field. But when it mattered the most, Kentucky's defense really held strong when it mattered. They kept every playmaker in front of them. They didn't allow anyone really to get behind them. I think that they're going to use the same type of game plan against Georgia. Go ahead and move the ball up and down the field, but can we hold you to field goals instead of touchdowns? Can we get a turnover when it matters the most there? I think that is very interesting. I think Kentucky's got a real shot at this, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think Georgia's going to win there. I also think that 14.5 is really high, but I also got a feeling that this could be the game that we really see, the Georgia we've expected for the last 2 years to come out here. I think this is a game where either Edwards or Ladd McConkey could have a really strong game and be the breakout star in this game. I got Georgia right at 14. I think that they're going to get 2 touchdowns late. The 14.5 is where I get tripped up at. If it was just 14 or 13.5, I would say give me Georgia to cover. The 14.5 is really, really a tough road to hoe for me. Just so I don't hear about it from other Georgia fans, give me Georgia and the points here. I'll say Georgia covers this game. I don't think it's going to be the end of their regular season home winning streak or winning streak in general. I think Kentucky's a great program. I think they're very well coached. I need to see it from Devin Leary before I pick Kentucky to win or Kentucky to keep this game close. I haven't seen enough from Leary, and that's what really causes me to have doubt that says Georgia won't cover. So I'm going to take Georgia to cover, and I'll go with the under here. Over set 48.5. So I'll say that they win this game here, though.
Well, I hope you're right, but it's gonna be a fun one. I think it's gonna be very nerve wracking. It's gonna be defense. And if kids out there, if people out there, you like defense, watch this game. You're gonna see 2 of the best defensively coached football teams between Stoops and Kirby and Muschamp and all these assistants. Those guys, they know defense. They've been doing it for a long time. Their families been doing it for a long time. You're gonna see guys in a chess match trying to figure each other out and work against each other's offenses, and it's gonna be a fun one.
Yeah.